Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Abe Got Spat, where we'll be covering the Good Friday Road Race. Just a quick introduction before things kick off with under a minute to go here. This race is in a way replacing the Ontario Cup Good Friday Road Race, which would be normally held at the race course out in Bowmanville, and we'd be normally dealing with some miserable rain, wind, and even a little bit of snow today. But with COVID, we're all online here, and so Toronto Hustle has done a wonderful task of pulling in the whole Ontario cycling community to race this race instead. So, talking about the start here, basically I know that we're going to be going on a full-on sprint, so you can see I'm already winding it up to over 400 watts here. With a pack of well over 100 people in a group start, we know that it's going to go bananas off the start, and we're going to be sprinting to find our way up to the front of the pack at the get-go. And so Zwift will take your starting position, your starting watts, and will estimate you into the pack after we leave the pen. And right off the bat, I'm estimated at about 170th position. So myself and so many others here are just sprinting as hard as we possibly can. What's going to matter in this race, and I'll come back to this a little bit later, is not necessarily your overall power, but most important is going to be your position. And so this is a real Zwift trick for those who are new to the Zwift environment, is all the work that you do during the race is negligible compared to where you get in the start and what pack you're rolling with. So I knew with a mixed all-category race here that I needed to be to the front pack, and so I'm still doing 400 watts here, rolling till I know I'm at the front. Now this is a grim course because we go from the sprint to the front of the pack to immediately a climb here through the pines, and so I know that I'm going to be absolutely on the rivet. You can see my heart rate's already at 181 beats per minute here. My heart rate max, we'll come back to this, is about 193. Which is a nice range for someone who's 38 years old. So I do take advantage of that heart rate. But the other issue here is at about 184 beats per minute. I am a very unhappy person and would like to kind of dial it back. So watch that heart rate as we go through here, because that's gonna play into where I end up and what pack I end up in. So anyways, knowing I need to roll in the front, I need to get through Titans Grove here with the lead pack. I am going to absolutely bury myself and make sure that this fast pack is the pack that's going to pull me through for at least the start of the race. Now, as happens for me racing in 8th grade, I know it's probably just a matter of time till I will get spat. But the trick is to at least be spat out when you're as far forward as possible, and then you can find as fast a group as possible to connect with and to roll through. So a little bit more background on this particular event. As I mentioned, this is sort of a replacement for the O Cup. The categories in Zwift are categories A through D and a women's category as well, and that's based on your watt per kilogram. I've been riding Zwift from pretty close to the beginning, probably the end of, I want to say, 2016. And then I signed on to Zwift Power in 2017 and have been riding ever since. And that's been a great way to both get familiar with the platform as well as to understand your own personal power and a really kind of true and honest measure of where you're at. And watched myself go from about 3.2 watts per kilogram to about 4.2 watts per kilogram over those 3 years. And so what we did for this is kind of a mix of our real life categories, as well as for those already on Zwift Power are stuck with their category. So for me, it was an interesting case because I ride M3 on the road. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we hit kind of a calm section. But I ride A grade on Zwift, and so was going to be in here with folks who absolutely thrash me in real life. So what I did here is I picked the lightest bike possible because I knew it's the climbs that were going to make me hurt the most. And so having the lightest bike possible is going to kind of help me at least try to stay with a pack that I can then just draft through the downhills and the flats. So here we are still pounding our way up Titans Grove, often in the 4.5 to 5 watts per kilogram, just to survive this little section. My heart rate is high, but not horrid. And so at about 100 beats, 80 beats per minute, I can survive. And so I was just glad that no one took this particular climb at like a 7 or an 8 watts per kilogram, because at that point I'm gone, I'm toast. And so fortunately folks knew this is a 50-kilometer race, and I think they knew that there was a harder climb coming, and so just did a stiff but not an impossible climb up here. So you'll see there's a little bit of recovery here, and then the final miserable climb. So lots of names in here that Ontario racers will recognize. Lots of folks. I do spend a lot of time looking at the racetiming.ca results. I'm like a race results creeper on sports stats for triathlon on race timing. And I do just love watching cycling. So I race M3, but I always stick around to watch the rest of the races. So lots of folks here that I'm used to cheering on, and the teams that I recognize from the E1, E2, as well as some folks that I ride with on the LCW Tuesday Night Crits out here in the London area. So you'll see teams like Toronto Hustle, you'll see Hamilton United in here, you'll see Ascent. Some juniors as well, some folks that I watched come up through the attack racing, like Alex or Axel Froner is in here. See some other juniors. I believe Matt Hogan is a junior as well, and also some big names in here. You'll see Matteo Dalcin from Rally Racing, one of our Canadians that's gone on to ride UCI. And so I'm a little out of my league. But for me, again, this was all about strategy, because in Zwift, yes, there's a sense that there's, the absolute power matters, but there's so much to be done in terms of where you position. And so for me, I knew that if I went full sprint for this first, it's going to be about 7.5, 8 minutes, that would just give me so much of an advantage versus trying to go hard 7 or 8 minutes later in the race. And so you can see already, if you look at the little map in the corner, the whole entire race is already strung out. And this is going to be the theme for the race is the splits. This is something I've really learned also with doing the Tuesday midweek crits, is that it's all about surviving the splits. The splits are inevitable. They're going to come on any climb, basically. And so if you can be as forward as possible, then all you got to do is you don't need to be on the front. You don't need to be going off the front. You just need to be far enough forward that the split happens behind you. And in that way, the race will carry you a lot. Without you having to do work that's beyond your ability. So we're just rolling down the hill now. The other thing that you'll notice if you watch my heart rate, so my strength is aerobic. I can go very close to my aerobic limit for a very long time, and as soon as I go slightly under that, my heart rate recovers pretty quickly. So that's a benefit of all the racing and triathlons and stuff that I've done over the past 7 years, and also that's just genetic as well. So I was always did running, soccer, ultimate frisbee, those sorts of things. And so you see my heart rate's already down to 165 as we come down this hill. Basically anything in the 160s, and I'm ready for another effort. And so this is all I needed, because I knew that there's going to be some tough stuff. There's another little rise that comes up here, and then there's going to be some gravel in the big climb. So as long as I'm in the 160s, I am good to go for another attack, another effort. And so I can roll along at about 4.2 watts per kilogram and be okay here. So you see Anton Verabey from Toronto Hustle there, Travis Samuel. These are all names, folks that I follow, that I cheer on. There's Ethan Sitlington. He's a junior that's now moved up. Ascent Racing you see in there. I think that's Connor Gregory. Sorry, folks, if I get your names wrong. Like I said, I mostly know you from cheering on the sidelines and reading the race timing results. Andrew Bukowski's in this group. He's a local rider, guy that beats me every single time at LCW Tuesdays, and so his name's going to come up again a little bit later in the race. Nicholas Menengun, Connor White. There's Matteo Delchin. There's our rally cycling. PJ Kings, who I don't know, but folks talked about him having huge power, so he was a name that I was watching to do big things in this race as well. So yeah, let me, well, we're in a bit of a lull here as we roll down from the Titans Grove. Let me tell you a little bit more about my background. I hope this is of interest. I mean, I hope that some cycling nerds are going to be watching this, and you'll be interested in how me as an M3, how am I rolling with this group of like professionals and semi-professional bike riders, E1, 2, M1 kind of riders. So there's a couple things. I already mentioned my anaerobic, and so for me, the nice thing about Zwift racing is anything that's flat or just a little bit lumpy, because I can do 5 watt per kilogram efforts, 5.5, and recover again and again and again. And can often recover at a pace that's a little stiff for other folks. The big problem that I have is I have no top end, and anyone who has sprinted around me at an LCW crit can attest to that. What often happens if I do survive into the finish of an A grade crit is I come out of that last corner, I'm already top speed, and everyone else has another gear where they can really punch and sprint away. Same thing happens on Zwifts when you hit really big climbs, because rolling through Titans Grove at 5.5 watts per kilogram, yes, it does put me right close to my heart rate max, but it doesn't pop me. Whereas when we hit something really long or really steep and people start doing 7, 8 watts per kilogram, I just don't have that. It does not exist. I have no anaerobic capacity, and so I'll be right out the back on anything like that. So that's one. Another thing is, why am I up a couple categories from in real life? To be perfectly honest, I'm not that great at steering a bicycle, and so anyone who's ridden around Fanshawe Lake and watched me crash in front of them, or has been with me in a Paris to Ancaster where I haul away from the pack in the open gravel roads and then get passed by everyone in the muddy pathways. That steering a bicycle is not my forte. And so, in things like Via d'Italia this past year, I dumped it in the corner one, leading the group. So that's about as unforced error as you can get on steering a bicycle. In my defense, it was a wet corner, and I had too much pressure in my tires. But not a great bike handler is one challenge. I'm a triathlete, and so I fit that stereotype. And so that's a challenge for me. Whereas here on Zwift, all you have to do is put out the power. And if it's an aerobic favoring course, so something flat or just intermittently lumpy, something like the New York course really favors me, I can just do all kinds of power. So yeah, not good at steering a bike. I also don't do a ton of the O Cup racing because of my triathlon schedule. So there's limited opportunities for me to get the upgrade points as well. But I am one life goal is to get that M2 upgrade, and so that's what I was hoping for this year. Obviously, that's out the window, but I'll be trying for that again next year. I've been bugged that I should probably just ask for the upgrade. I do want to earn it. And even if it just means getting better at the bike handling, I should probably earn it. I'm not bad. I've never crashed anyone out, and I've dodged some pretty ugly stuff. But actually, no, I did take Dan down when I fell on the front of the pack. A couple people ran into me. But I would like to get the M2 upgrade eventually, if I can do enough races in a year. So the other thing about the change in terms of what category is just the time on Zwift. And so by having spent so much time these past 3 years particularly, that's allowed me to climb up the rankings of Zwift much more than the rankings in real life. What do I do? What's my training regimen? My training regimen is about 4 rides a week, 3 runs a week, and 5 swims a week. I do my swims in Masters Group. I swim about a lane above my regular ability, so all my swims are very hard. So 5 hard swims. I've seen great progress with that, having gone from about a 158 open water pace to a 142, and hoping for about a 140 before this whole shutdown over the past couple of years as well. So great results in the swimming. And then the cycling, what I do is I just love racing, and so I do essentially 3 or 4 Zwift events. And as you all know who are on Zwift, any Zwift event is a race. So there's more than one person on Zwift, it's a race. So I basically just race myself to fitness. Okay, I'm going to go back to talking about the race itself here because things are about to get grim. So folks have already gone hard across the gravel here, and you can see my heart rate's already at 177. As I told you, I got to be at about 160 to feel ready to go, and I know there's a climb coming. So I'm in really bad shape here. I am about to blow up, and I know it at this point. There's no way I can go up this little steep climb here, starting already at 177 beats per minute. You'll see if you watch the video from Toronto Hustle, who did a live video of this. Yuri put that together. You'll see him roll by me as I drift backwards in his video. So I've done everything that I could. I got into the right pack. This pack has pulled me way ahead of a huge amount of other riders. So that's the bonus I was looking for. And so we hit this. You see the feathers light up as everyone starts going. And if you look at the watts on the side, you're seeing people hitting 6, hitting 7. 7.6, some people hitting 8 watts per kilogram coming up here. I can hit that 6, but you'll see heart rate 185, 186. I am super unhappy at this point in time. 187, and dinner starts to reappear. And so there's nothing I can do at this point. There goes Andrew Bukowski rolling by me. There goes Yuri, catching up, and he goes by me, and basically I know that I'm just going to watch this pack right away. What I'm going to hope for is that I won't come out of this alone. And so hoping that there's going to be other people that I can roll with once this flattens out, and get some recovery. So you'll see I do get split off a little bit, but a group does come back together. So that's one benefit of having so many people in a race, because I've been in a lot of these situations with Zwift A races where you go up a climb and there's literally no one left with you. At that point in time, you can just watch the pack go further, almost exponentially faster than you. They're a minute ahead, they're 2 minutes ahead, they're 4 minutes ahead, they're 6 minutes ahead. And you can easily finish 7, 8, 9 minutes down of the pack where you've done almost the same watts per kilogram as the leaders, but they had that top end punch. So here I am, a very unhappy person in a way, as I roll across this solo, but happy in knowing that the group is strung out way behind. So now if you look at the map, you'll see the B riders particularly are a whole pack behind, and there are some red dots behind me. And so I'm keeping an eye on that group, because I am hoping I'm going to make some friends as we get over some of this uphill, and things start coming back together. And so that's the hope for me. All right, so back to what I was talking about in terms of my training as I roll lonely and sad up this hill. So I mean, any cycling coaches are welcome to go on the comments and tell me I'm an idiot, that 4 30 to 40 minute races a week is a terrible cycling training plan. I should be doing base miles. I should be doing some zone 2 stuff. I should be having recovery days. Probably right, absolutely. But I'm an amateur. I'm a recreational person, and I do, of course, I like to compete. But most of all, I just want to have fun with this. So I'd rather, on any single workout, do what's fun than do perhaps what's best for me. And then in terms of so if I'm doing 11 to 12 workouts a week, what does recovery look like? I just listen to my body, and so I may take a day off in the week, I may not. There's kind of depends what happens. So I'm recording this, for example, the day after. I'm still gonna go for a run today because I'm really sore, but I could get a little short run and I could survive a short run and get through it. But in terms of the running, and so I mentioned, my cycling has improved. I've gone up about 70 watts on my FTP over 3 years on Zwift. My running has slowed down. So 2 years ago, I ran an 18:24 on a 5K. These days, I would be hard pressed to run a 20-minute. I could, but it would be all that I could do. Maybe a 1950 or something like that. So definitely with all the focus on bike racing and on swimming as hard as I possibly can, 5 days a week, I have gotten slower on the run, which is fine. In terms of triathlon, you're going to make your best gains on the bike, and then you just need to if you can be ahead enough on the bike, you just need to run the same pace as everyone else. You don't need to beat them on the run. But I will be, if we ever get out of this COVID situation, here I am looking back to see if I can make some friends, then I will definitely be having to focus on more speed work on the run to get some of that back. I'll also have to lose some weight. I've got some COVID pounds on. I've put on, since I started the Zwift, I was at 67 kilos, up to 69. I'm now at 71 kilograms. I do hope some of that is swimming and cycling muscle, and so maybe that won't all come off, but definitely be able to take some weight off when race season comes. So here I am just watching these folks come back. Um, so someone from Morning Glory Cycling, I believe the other gentleman is Derek Salisbury. I'd have to look that up again. Sorry, guys, that I don't know your names, everyone. But it's good that I've got some guys. This isn't the size of group that I would like. I'd rather be in about 9 to 10. You'll see with 4 riders, although Zwift does a pretty good job with the draft of keeping people together, with 4 you still get all these kind of like micro gaps in the bunch, and people kind of accidentally roll a little too much off the front, and it's just not quite what you want. I think probably a group of 8 is your kind of minimum best viable draft group for Zwift. But this is fine, of course. It's better than being on my own, and I'm sitting in here and getting some extra recovery. Heart rate down to 162. I'm ready really to go again, but don't have a huge motivator at this point in time. There's also a couple more guys back at about 16 seconds. It looks like Nicholas Menengan and someone from New Zealand. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe those folks will catch on as well. And so not really putting a huge effort in at this point, because I do have some interest in more folks getting on. However, the further back I look, there's a pretty large pack. There's Adam Trella in that pack. He's a guy that regularly thrashes me at LCW as well. So again, the advantage of the start has put me way ahead in terms of my natural ability, and has now a whole bunch of the strongest people pulling me along. Because that's the other thing that happens is the further you can start ahead, the stronger your draft pack is going to be, and so definitely huge advantage on just sprinting right to the front at the beginning and then hanging on to the lead group as long as humanly possible. Often in A races like this that are a bit smaller, what I'll do is I'll hang on to that front gap or that front pack. They may pull me kind of 2 minutes free of the second group, and then I just try to hang on to my position until the finish line before that second group catches me. This is also a way to win B races that have a mass start. Pro tip for any B riders who are watching this is go bananas, hang in with the A group until you're spat, and then you just need to survive to the finish before the rest of the B pack catches up to you. So there's a little tip. That's how I was winning some B races. Now that does require the mass start, of course, versus ones where all the B's start together. So here we pick up another guy coming in, which is great. And Lowe and Menengan are now only 6 seconds behind, so I'm pretty confident that they will be catching on as well. So again, I'm not really pushing the pace here because I do want to make some friends in this. At the same time, because we've got a pack, we're catching up to Graydon Staples ahead of us, and so he's a strong name I recognize as well. Reading the names on this is kind of like reading a Canadian cycling magazine and seeing the results from racing. So his is a name I recognized as well, and so I thought, hey, there's some more power to get into the mix here. And so if you can get the right size pack, the strongest people are going to be the only people who catch up to you, so you'll pick up strong people. At the same time, if you're drafting along together, you will scoop up some other strength to add to the group. So now we're getting closer to the size that I'm happy about. And, still myself not doing a ton of work in this group. I will do work, and you'll see that comes up in a little bit, but I'm only going to do that when it is necessary. And so I've got to have some logic, some reason to be going hard, and this is not the time on a downhill. Where we're trying to let Menengan and Lowe catch up to us as well. So, and here we go. We get some more friends in the group, and they're pushing a little bit there. And so that's the other thing. You really do have to kind of watch the pack and when things are going, so that you don't get off the back there. So now we are in a pack of 8, and this is perfect. We can roll this pack, and we can honestly, I at this point in time am happy to just ride this pack all the way to the finish. I know we're not going to bridge. It's everyone who's ahead of us were people who could do 6, 7, 8 watts per kilogram up a climb. I'm never going to catch those people. And now I'm more concerned about what's behind us. And so as I look back, I start to see some names like Alex van der Linden. Alex is an incredibly accomplished triathlete. I also see a rider from Toronto Hustle. I see Peter Newhook back there. These are all, strong riders. These are riders who I wouldn't want to take head-to-head on an open road at any time, at any point. And so now I'm thinking, okay, what we need to do as a pack is we need to be at least motivated enough to keep ahead of this big blob behind us. Graham Rivers, and there's Eric Houston. Eric's a guy also at LCW who always beats me up at LCW. And so I don't really want that pack to catch. And that's going to come into my strategy here, watching what kind of gap that they have. On the other hand, it wouldn't be the worst thing if we could pick up a couple of the fastest riders from that pack. And so there's, out of this little circuit, we're going to go across a flat section here, and then we're going to hit a climb. And it's not steep, that steep of a climb, but it's gravel, and Zwift definitely takes into account the surface. And so it's a real grunt to get up and out of the jungle here. And it's a great spot to stretch things out, whether it's an attack or what have you. And so I'm starting to think here, okay, there's a possibility that A, we can drop anyone from our pack who's not strong enough, and B, maybe some of the stronger riders from the pack behind will come across and boost our ranks. So there's an opportunity here to kind of shuffle the packs and change up to make sure and optimize who's in here. So at 24 seconds behind us, I'm starting to get a little concerned and think that, okay, I'm going to have to go at some point unless the pack itself gets motivated. I'm going to have to motivate it. Fortunately, I think some folks are having the same thought because Millington and Staples are both cranking away on the front here, and that's all I need. That's all I want is the pack to go fast enough that at least we don't make it easy for the folks behind to catch us. And then if necessary, I will contribute to this. And so you see I do roll to the front a bit here and make sure we're at least keeping at 4 watts per kilogram at a minimum. But again, Graydon and Toronto Hustle Menengen are doing a great job here in keeping our tempo up. And so yeah, that's what I really wanted. The other little thing that I had in the back of my mind through this race is I did want to make sure that I beat the B riders. And so, being categorized as a Zwift A rider, which again feels like I'm riding a bit above my level there. I did have something to prove. I did want to prove that I could roll with the A's. And so I didn't really want to be caught by B riders through here. Good sign that folks are using the drafting. That means that they are willing to go hard up this climb. And so now I start to push a lead here, 5 watts per kilogram, as that group is getting really close behind us. I don't mind it getting close enough that a couple guys might come across and join us, but I definitely don't want that whole pack behind us to catch up. I wasn't sure how big it was. I knew it was big enough, though, that I'd seen a lot of different names cycling through the list behind us. and wasn't too interested in 20 guys coming across. And so here I am, just kind of keeping the pace high. I don't really want to split the pack, so I let folks keep up here. And again, Millington, great, doing his part as well to keep us moving. So that was good to see that we were a motivated enough pack to keep that group behind, at least having to fight, so that if they fought to get across, that would stretch them out. It would pop off any of the tired riders off of their pack, and then anyone who did come across to us was going to be a good benefit to our group. At the same time, as you look ahead now, this effort of us kind of going up the climb here has started to bring back Matt Hogan, and Onjang. And so that could be another benefit as well, because we could pick up some riders who are better than us up the hill if we keep up this tempo. But now it's getting real close, 10-second gap, which again, it could be nice. That could be enough of a motivator for some people to make the jump, but it's making me nervous that that whole group is going to come across to us. And so I start to think about, okay, I'm going to have to do something, but Graydon is going again with 5 watts per kilogram, and so that's about all we can ask at this point in the race. So take another break from the strategy to talk about how I do my Zwift racing. I always do a warm-up because I know that things are going to go absolutely bananas. I use a water with an electrolyte in it because no matter how much I've got an air conditioner in the window right beside me and a fan right in front of me, you're always going to sweat like crazy in these races. So that's super important to have as well. Other than that, the nice thing about Zwift is you can sit in a really comfortable position. You can sit up on your bike if you like. Whatever helps you get your best power out. I find I do a lot more seated climbing than I would in real life. In real life, I'd be up out of the seat quite a bit on these types of grades. And then I just have some music on and try to play some good motivating music as well. I'm in kind of a walk-in closet for my Zwift setup, but it's all you need as long as you've got good air circulation and good enough computer that you're not going to get glitches and dropouts and that kind of stuff. So Graydon, absolute champ up this climb. He's been doing the bulk of the effort, but we're in a situation that I had wondered about, which is that our group is all stretched out, the group behind us is all stretched out, and basically there's been contact made, where I believe there's contact. It looks like there's still maybe about 15 meters. But again, I don't want too much contact between the groups, so I'm going with Graydon. He's doing the right thing here and keeping us up there. I'm trying to look at the names to see if anyone did come across. I think Odell and Stedman came across to our group. I'll confirm that once we get up and over the top. I was kind of hoping, frenemies and all, I was kind of hoping Alex van der Linden and Eric Houston would come across. Always more fun to race with people even if they're people can beat you. So we have some new jerseys, orange jerseys new in this group. I believe that's Stedman and Chu. And so there was a shakeup. Okay, so it was hard to see kind of how it all unfolded in the moment, but there's definitely been a shakeup here where we have dropped some riders from our pack back to the group behind, and some riders from the group behind have come across to us. So that's perfect, really, in my mind. It's a shakeup. That means that now all the all those who are most fresh at this moment in time are going to be riding with me. And so we just need to keep enough pressure here that that it doesn't shake up anymore. And so you can see the gap is close, but it starts to go out at times again as well. Andon does some really great work at some points in this race as well. And you can see Ongzheng is now coming back to us pretty quickly. So that's going to be a benefit if we can bring them back. And then suddenly I noticed that Andrew Bukowski is 2 up in front of us. So at 45 seconds ahead of us are Nepal and Bukowski. And so it starts to be a little bit of an interesting motivator for me, because we've got a pack of about 10. And so I know on the flats and the downhills, we're going way faster than anyone can go 2 up. So I start to think about working to catch them at some point in the race. I am now doing the work on the front here to keep us moving. The group had been slowing a little bit. And so you do have to do your part. Although Zwift is a lot about sitting in, there are moments where you need to work. And for me, this was one of them, because I had become fresh again. And I did not want that big pack behind to catch up to us. I wanted to keep this as grim as possible up this drag. And so I do believe I used my aero power up here as well at some point in time, just to keep motivating that group to go as fast as it can up this hill. And it's great when you see them all kind of come around me at 4.3, 4.7 watts. It means the whole group is kind of wise to the game here, and it is keeping that pack behind at that 8-second gap, which is all I wanted at this point in the race. All right, just take another little break to tell you. Then I've mentioned kind of the change in my watts. So I was about 235 watt FTP when I started tracking with Zwift Power. Of course, that's it's a little tricky, because there's lots of Zwift races that are only 30 minutes, and so you might see like a lot higher watts than that, or there's like the big tour events where you do way lower than that, but it's tons of climbing or a really long race. And then I've just kind of watched those slowly go up little bit by little bit by little bit. As I said, the racing all the time might not be the best way to get there. I do think having the huge amount of cross training. Oh yeah, here's where I'm using my aero boost, and you see the guys respond with the drafts behind me, which is great. That means the whole pack is hustling. I'm also at 181 beats per minute here, so I had to dial it back and let the others do some work. But that's all I want to do. I just want to motivate the group, get them charging, and then ride along as they pull us up and over this last bit. Pretty confident. So we've got 13 seconds now on the group behind. Pretty confident that as long as they're not a huge group, with which they shouldn't be at this point, now that we've dragged up out of the jungle, and I can see there's some splits behind, that once we get rolling on the downhill, it's so hard to catch a group of our size. And so that's all I wanted to do, is get us over the bump here, and then we can fly down this hill as a pack of what are we? We're about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 maybe. Think about a pack of 8, and 8 fairly new. About four of the same guys, 4 new guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Choose just a tiny bit behind. Forget if he gets back on. So maybe 9. But yeah, we can fly down this hill as a group, as long as everyone keeps pushing on the pedals. So I'm going back to try to get the numbers on the group behind. And So I think they were about 6. I counted there. You can't look away for too long, or else you accidentally get spat off the back. But I did want to have a look to make sure that we had outnumbered the group behind. If we hadn't outnumbered the group behind, I'm down to 166 beats per minute. I could go onto the front here and haul a little bit and just motivate our downhill speed. Seeing that we're 8 and they're 6, I'm feeling pretty confident that we'll stay away. So now I'm looking ahead. Matt Hogan, he's coming back. Anjeng is still pretty far ahead. Bukowski's going to be a long way to catch, but we got 23 kilometers, and we're riding 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 riders to 2. And so I'm pretty hopeful that we can make that catch over 23 kilometers. I mean, as a group of 8, you can see we're doing 63, 64, 65 kilometers an hour down this hill. The downhills we're going to absolutely fly. The flats will crank along pretty good. And so thinking that maybe the second time through the forest, we may be able to catch on to those guys. Oh yeah, I think I was talking about my FTP, because, you know, that's what cyclists and triathletes do. We talk about our FTP. Oh yeah, so I think the cross training has had a lot of the benefit that I've seen. The great thing about the cross training is it really does allow you to work out way more than anyone, you know, possibly can. And so there's no way you can ride 12 times a week, but you can swim, bike, and run 12 times a week. So that huge benefit there on doing the triathlons. In terms of Zwift racing, so yeah, I want to be really clear. There is a big difference between in real life and Zwift. And so you know, having a decent watt per kilogram doesn't mean anything if you go out to the road racing and you're losing the wheels every corner. You're drifting to the back of the pack all the time. You know, having a big aerobic engine doesn't really help if the racing is all anaerobic. If you go out to the Mosport track where the race was supposed to be for Good Friday, and you're going up the that climb, that little, what is it? It's about, is it 50, 30 meter? I forget. That steep little climb at the back end. Anyway, if you go up that and everyone's doing 8 watts per kilogram up that every time, you're gonna miss the split. And that race for categories like M3 for sure often comes to pieces. And so, you know, you definitely having a good aerobic doesn't necessarily help if it's an anaerobic style of racing. But I am pretty happy. You know, I wanted to be able to roll with the A folks in this, and I'm sitting up in 47th here, so I know there's a ton of guys that are ahead of me. I'm just hoping none of those guys are B riders, and you know, if I'm middle of the pack in the A's, that's all I really wanted here. So we're gonna just roll along here. I'm gonna skip the video forward because not a lot happens until later on in the race. So we're just rolling along as a pack. The pack behind us is drifting backwards. You can see they've got 27 seconds. It's just a matter of numbers. Again, this is why your position in the race is so important, because, you know, Eric Houston, Alex van der Linden, those guys could probably whip any single person in my pack. But well, you know, maybe not every one of them. Not great in staples. But it's size now. We've got 8, they've got 5 or 6, and they won't be able to catch us. We're actually, I think we picked up Hogan now, so we're up to 9. And I think one came across Daranku came across, and now Daranku starts this hero pull, and this goes on pretty much until we catch up to Bukowski. So shout out to Daranku, who I believe he gets cracked then before the finish, but he hero pulled for like 5 minutes or so up this. Anyway, so I'm gonna jump us ahead here to going up the climb, and now we're back into the pines here. And again, as long as no one does 7-8 watts per kilogram, I'm just gonna roll with these guys. This is kind of a perfect thing because I know we're gonna go really hard up this. My heart rate's gonna get up to 180 whatever, and then we'll recover, and I'll be fresh for the sprint at the finish. Now, seeing some guys, Odell here, Duranku, start to do 5.5, I'm thinking, oh man, I'm almost on the rivet. And if 2 or 3 guys go away at that speed, it's game over. And I just got to watch them roll away, and then they're going to catch up to Bukowski and work with him. But instead, Duranku's finishing off his hero pull here. And does a great job at pulling us back up to Bukowski, and who he was with was, I think, someone from Toronto Hustle. We'll see when we get there. But, the heart rate is high. We're hurting. But we've caught 2 more strong riders, and the group behind is definitely gone. So we roll this for a while again, and I'm just going to jump us right up here again to an hour and 40 seconds. And we're coming back down the hill out of the forest. We've got 10K left to go, and it's just recovery time for everyone. 10K to go, not much action is going to happen. It's too far for a breakaway, and no one really wants to try anything anyway because we're all saving up for the sprint. So I'm going to jump us again to an hour 6:42. Here we got 6K to go. And again, just rolling the pack. And no fireworks, nothing going on. So I will jump us right towards the finish here at an hour 11:06. And we're 3K to go. And it's starting to speed up a little bit. You can see my heart rate's up to 172. That's not great. That means I'm not going to have a final gear for the sprint. I'll be able to go fast, but I won't be able to jump from here up to anything. No hero watts when the heart rate's already that high. So my strategy at this point in a Zwift race is that you just want to basically skate kind of second or third wheel. So what Zwift does is it's going to roll the group by you as you hit more wind than they do. So you're just going to have to push a little bit hard so that Zwift knows to roll you back up. So you can see here, I'm kind of back onto third wheel. So I'm going to keep doing that over and over again all the way to the finish line, where it's just kind of these micro accelerations to tell the program to move you up in the pack. It does hurt. You'll see my heart rate never comes down. I'm not recovering at this point in time. But what it's going to ensure is it's going to put me right to the front of the pack, because what happens is before any sprint, things always do string out to some extent. So there's always riders who maybe they're not trying to break away, but they get excited before the sprint. They start pushing kind of 5-6 watts per kilogram, and they will pull you along, and you'll just keep right near that front if you keep doing the little bursts. And so you see here, the whole time I'm trying not to actually catch wind, So I don't want to actually chase down that guy who's off a tiny bit on Zheng. But I also don't want the program to think to roll me back. Because once you've been rolled right to the back of a pack, even if it's only 10, 12 riders, it's a lot of work to come forward from there. You can tell Bukowski knows this as well. So he's a very experienced Swift racer. He's won a ton of races. And so all we're doing is making sure we're near the front. So I see this group rolling forward. So it's like, okay, I'm going to have to accelerate a little bit, 4.9, 4.8, 5, because I don't want the program to let all those guys come by me. Because then you've got too much work to do when the sprint actually kicks off. And so again, just kind of pushing as far forward as I can go in the group without being on the front here. Now again, this is just a fight for 40th place or whatever. So all the real important work was done in the first 7.5 minutes of the race. But there are some things you can do in the last couple minutes to at least optimize your position here. Especially if you're someone like me who isn't going to be doing a 1,000-watt sprint at the finish. So again, still staying near the front, near the front, near the front. Bukowski's doing the same thing near the front. And 400 meters, I know it's about to go here. And 300 meters. And Bukowski hits his arrow, so you know he's going. So I'm going as hard as I can here. 600 watts. It's decent, but you know Bukowski is gone like a rocket ship. But the nice thing is, because I was already on the front, the 600 watts was enough to pull me into second in that pack. So anyway, that's how an M3 rider did kind of okay on the Good Friday road race. You know, I hope if you're listening that there's something you could learn from this, or if there's something that I should learn, tell me in the comments and tell me why my training plan is a terrible training plan. And anyways, thanks for coming along for the ride and for listening to me ramble on for an hour straight without breathing. Have a wonderful riding day today. It's sunny outside, and I'll catch you at the next race.